I speak especially as Aboriginal artists. Our truth is what makes us who we are in our culture and our spirituality, and that truth resonates into the community.
Mobo Jarjum, that's tomorrow's children, because all we do is for them, really. And if they can get these words, get the pronunciation of it correct, they can then start using it in daily life, and they do.
It's relationships between mothers and fathers, between parents and children, between children and their grandparents. It's that deterioration of that family relationship and connection.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people can now stand with huge humility and be very proud of who we are and what we are and the way in which we have survived.
Welcome once again to Beyond the Boundary Road. I'm Fred Leone.
And I'm Mandanara Bales. Language is such a big part of our culture and identity. Over the last 200 years, a lot of our languages have become lost.
Today we're going to meet a man whose family has been tracing their local language from way back.
In the 1860s, a young orphaned boy went to live with an English family. Through the course of time, Johnny was the first Aboriginal to develop a dictionary containing his language.
Rory O'Connor from the Yugambeh Museum is one of the first in the country to develop a language app in today's technology. So thanks heaps for coming in, brother. Thank you very much.
Which is just to say g'day, welcome in our country, and in my language, and to my friends.
Yeah,
How good is that?
Yeah. So Rory, can you tell us who the Yugambeh people are and what they're famous for?
What they're famous for? I love that question. What they're famous for? You're not on the spot, but what are you famous for? Okay, basically, the Yugambeh mob comprise a bunch of different clan groups who lived in the southeast corner of the state, from Tweed just about all the way up to Brisbane, heading out west to Bedesert, the Rathdowney way, and those individual clan groups sort of got dispersed, shot out, pushed out. But the language group has remained, and so there's mob in Bedesert, Mununjali, they're part of our mob. Some people identify as Wangorabara, which is where you talk about Johnny Allen. Bullam was his traditional name. Bullam means peewee. So today we're this quite a large group of people, and our lands, within our lands, there's almost 1 million people live, so that's us today. What we're famous for? Well, not a lot, but one of our stories, a part of our journey is 30 odd years ago, my mother, who is Aboriginal, she's born in Bedesert actually, to Aboriginal parents, descended from Billen on one side and Granny Graham from the coast on the other. She was born in Bedesert to an Aboriginal family, and at a very young age went to live with her grandmother at Southport. And her grandmother was traditionally scarred. So Mum is this little girl in this house with this grand old lady who's the matriarch of the Gold Coast, and anyone who went to the coast back then at Southport would have to see Granny Graham. Mum was her bell girl, so when she had a cup of tea, she'd ring a bell, Mum would come out, so bring tea for the people. So Mum got all those stories. So Mum's 60 years old, and she goes, look, I have to do something about saving our language, because all her elders are passing on. Sorry, she's in her 50s when this happens. And she goes to the University of Queensland and says, how do we gather our language, and they said, don't worry, your language is dead. Go study Bunjalung. But the word Yugam means no. So Mum said, look, no, I don't think so. So she gathered all the elders together, got them in a room. I was a young journo then, and I remember going to these old Aboriginal men and women and saying, do you know any language words? No, don't know why we're here, only here because the wife brought us. I go, this is going to be pretty embarrassing. But the moment that it kicked off, we had a Margaret Sharp, a Bunjalung language expert, came in and said, well, this is how you say in Bunjalung, a mob of kangaroos is over the tree. Well, she didn't get to the second word when these old blokes just exploded into voice. That's not how we say it. No, our word for kangaroo is money. We don't use that word. And they knew language. So in the last 30 years, Mum, my auntie, her little sister, just been plodding away to revive that language. And now it's at a point we can teach it in schools. We have a museum that's open to the public, and I'm here as the next generation to make sure that battle continues. Yeah.
The concept behind the app, the Yugambeh app, how did this come about?
Okay, so 1913, Johnny Allen sits down and writes a dictionary. It goes into the parliamentary papers. In the year 2006, whatever, we reprint said dictionary here so everyone can have it. The reason I've got an app is my cousins that ring up all the time and say, quick, I'm about to give a speech. What's the word for koala? I go, Boraby, you idiot. Why are you calling me? You've got the dictionary? Yeah, my brother stole it. So I thought, to stop those embarrassing situations, what they need to do is go, aha, what's a koala? It's a borobee, and put it on the phone. And also kids these days, and we talk about mob jajum, that's tomorrow's children, because all we do is for them, really. They've all got phones, none of them have got credit, and if they can get these words, get the pronunciation of it correct, they can then start using it in daily life, and they do. You know, they can put it in poems, rap, whatever they want, but it's to make it free and accessible to anyone, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, and that's the idea of the app.
This dictionary, I'd never even heard. So it's deadly to hear what you're talking about. This young fella getting taken away and then, you know.
Yeah, so Johnny Ellis' story is an amazing one, but he became best mates with one of the first, settling families, if you call them that.
Yeah.
His best mate as they grew up, they shared experiences all around the country because the Collins family were taking up land everywhere. And they saved each other's lives, had these adventures. So when his best mate becomes a member of the Queensland Parliament, they're talking about blackfellas and they're saying what terrible things did or didn't happen. He says, well, let's ask Johnny, my mate, because he's a blackfella, he can tell us all about it. So that's what happened. And Bullam did this lovely account of surviving a massacre as a young kid. And he said, I'll give you one example and no more, just so you know this is what actually happened in this country. And he talks about one that happened down at Nerang, you know, and people getting shot and terrible things. And perhaps as a reward, they said to him, well, why don't you sit down and do your language? So they gave him an English teacher for 6 weeks, and he sat down and worked with him. And Bullam admits, he says, look, I wasn't a clever man with words in my clan. There were more clever men than me. But with their verbs, you know, they've got the verbs in the present, the future tense, past tense. It's quite elaborate, and it gives me great hope that we can take this language and get it back into use, you know. That they say the Cornish language was considered dead in the year 1900. In 1904, some smarty pants wrote a book called A Handbook to the Cornish Language. Now there's thousands of speakers. Now, we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up. You know, we've got a dedicated language museum set in country, run by traditional owners. I think we've got that chance, and I guess that's where my passion for it comes from, you know, what I see as the future.
And talking about the future and technology these days, do you see this new technology being a way for the future in terms of preserving Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal languages?
No, it's part of the solution, but really you, we are the solution, and it's us talking with your judgums, with your kids.
Back to how we've been doing it for centuries, for generations.
Nothing changes that. So the other day I was at a performance poetry workshop for kids in Logan Central Library, and my little kids are there, they're 5 and 7. They actually wrote a poem with a performance poet, then put it to technology, they filmed it. With this, there's a cartoon app there that makes your face look like a cartoon, and my little boy is singing his own poem as a digital image, you know, so it's a combination of it all, but it's all people. You know, the only reason we'll use language words is if you use them and I use them.
Hey, who are some of the key people or key organisations or people who are involved in putting the app together?
Oh, look, basically our museum operates with a lot of community members, so it's people coming in and I'm saying, hey, how would this work with you and how would that work, you know? So it was my dream, I had to make sure it worked. The board of the museum was very, very supportive, but it's gone beyond what I thought it, you know. I did it for us, but we work with language groups right through the state. So the next edition of the app comes out, it'll have Dungri mob, so Mitchell language, you know, probably 500 800 words for them. Strati, Jandai, we helped them do a dictionary recently. So, and a lot of people living in the area, Yugambeh is not their language, but you know, we want those kids to be able to go, oh, well, actually, I'm Waka Waka, but it's on this app too. So a lot of communities don't have the technology we've got, the skills we've got at our museum, but we want to help them. So that's where we're going.
Just unbelievable hearing about this stuff. It's so inspiring, and I guess on that note, we should wrap up and say thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences, your journey, and the success of such a deadly initiative with this Yugambeh app. So thank you very much.
Thank you
and I'll say Gurumani Anya, which means I'm going, my story is told.
Deadly.
Deadly.